there is a physical need. Yes, there is withdrawal symptoms from dependence, but there's something else that keeps sending this person back into the behavior, and that is a mental health issue too. There's actually two kinds of addiction then, because the thing that we usually talk about, which is substance addiction, is the thing you put in your body. So that's alcohol, other drugs, smoking, and what is the most socially acceptable addiction in our society? Caffeine, right? So I just down my last gulp of caffeine for the day, and hopefully it'll carry me through to the end of this lecture. But now there's another kind of addiction, which is process addiction. And process addiction is the things you do that you are compulsive, that you feel a dependence on, and you keep on doing it despite ongoing consequences. So it's actually harming your life. It's interfering with the things you need to do, but you keep doing it anyway because you are compelled to. Mental health issue here. So the famous ones are gambling. If you ever heard a lottery commercial, $1, just $1 in a dream, or something to that effect, then what do they always say at the end of the commercial in a very fast voice, just before the commercial cuts off? If you have a gambling addiction, call this out, or it's like a much faster way. So they have to throw it in there to comply with some kind of law, because gambling is an addiction. Many people like to brag that they have a shopping addiction, but if it doesn't stop you from getting good grades, if it doesn't it doesn't make it harder to pay the bills, if it doesn't impair you from maintaining your half of the relationship, then it's not an addiction. You just like to shop. Everybody likes to shop. We like to get new things. So you don't have a shopping addiction. But if you cannot maintain your responsibilities, and it's literally harming your life, and you still do it anyway, now we got a shopping addiction. There are many, many other addictions. Any kind of behavior that the person does in a compulsive way and cannot stop themselves even though they try, then that is an addiction. I'm pretty sure I'm addicted to carbohydrates. I know what it does to me. I know it's bad for me. I actually bragged to all my classes that I'm going to lose 15 pounds this semester, and I'm nowhere near close. And I just cannot stop the carbs. So I still have I still have 2 months to go, but I have a lot of catching up to do. So for me, carbs is an addiction. I know it's bad for me, but I keep eating it anyway. Sex is also, you can also include pornography, so searching out sexual stimulation, as well as preying on people, innocent people, and so so all of that is part of this category of sex addiction. And so your homework assignment then is to think of another process addiction. You can't mention the ones here. So I just said porn addiction, so you cannot mention porn. That's a popular answer semester after semester. So no, I'm telling you now, you can't say it. I'm not changing a slide for it, so let's see now how many people actually mention porn addiction now, because it shows that they were not paying attention to this lecture or this video. Other kinds of process addictions that you cannot choose in your homework assignment answer. Technology addiction, any kind of technology, so internet, games, that's another popular answer, so I'm taking that out of the choices. You have to pick something else. Work addiction. Oh, is that possible? Can somebody love work that much that they are impairing their lives, harming their lives, their home relationships, their grades? Yes. So some people, maybe you may consider them lucky or unlucky from a point of view, They are so obsessed about their responsibilities at work that they are letting their responsibilities to friends and family, to their own health suffer. Exercise addiction. Some people get a high from exercising and they just can't wait to feel it again. I have no idea what that's like. Yes, I go to the gym a lot, like several times a week, but I go there like taking bitter medicine. The worst part of the gym for me, the hardest part of the gym, going to the gym for me, is going to the gym, like actually putting on my clothes and sneakers and getting out the door. That means stopping the computer game, stopping the cat video. That means actually getting my crap together to leave. The best part of the gym for me is leaving the gym, because it's over and I get this smug satisfaction that, okay, thank God I did my thing that I'm supposed to do here. Now I can go home. Now I can go have my snack. So then why do I go? Because it's medicine for me. I have to go in order to reduce my risk of stroke and heart disease. So I can't imagine somebody who would actually love it there so much that they would go. But some people do, and maybe it's a sense of control. As much as it sucks to be there, it's like they have control over. They finally have control over something in their lives, so they keep going at it to get that endorphin, that dopamine hit of like, I finally did something that I have under my control. And so they spend too much time there. They go too much into it, and to the point where it actually causes physical harm as well as cause them to fail on their other relationships, other responsibilities. And of course, you can have one or more of the above. A little from column A, a little from column B. So it sounds like, to me, and I'm not an expert, I'm not a psychologist, the psychiatry rotation in medical school was my weakest one. I had no idea what was going on. I just smiled and waved and pretended I understood. I got the pass for the rotation, but I really didn't know what the hell was going on there. So I'm not an expert, but from the little I learned, it's starting to sound like there's something going on in the brain. It's not so much what's happening to the body, it's something about the brain and its ability, or this person's ability, to control compulsion, to manage their cravings, to control their cravings. Something about that is going on that makes somebody addicted. Substance addiction, the most famous, so even though maybe caffeine is the most socially acceptable addiction, but the most famous addiction in all of history is alcoholism. And so, but you ask a young person that today, and they would say, drugs, right? So, cocaine, amphetamines, fentanyl, fentanyl was a big one up to a few years ago. It seems to be on the decline. So, drug addiction, and then there's a war on drugs, and it's been going on for decades. All right. Billions of dollars spent, trillions of dollars spent, lives destroyed. The governments, each presidential administration declares a war on drugs. Okay, after all that time and effort, how is it going? Are we winning yet? And the answer is no, we're not winning. Why not? There's detox centers, there's law enforcement, there's more laws, there's advertising campaigns. Why do you say none of this is working? And it doesn't seem to be working. Yes, the message reaches a few people every generation, but it doesn't reach a few people, other people every generation, and they end up addicted. And then they contribute to the problem. And this can actually go all the way back to what I was saying, trying to start at before, the most famous addiction of all, which is addiction to alcohol. And there's no doubt about it, addiction to alcohol does destroy lives. There's nobody will argue about that. But now, how do you fix it? How do you fight it? And there was a time between World War I and World War II, and the idea was, let's just make alcohol illegal in this country. Did it work? I mean, same way that we made cocaine illegal. There is a medical use for cocaine. We made heroin illegal. How did that work? We made amphetamines illegal. How did that work? Well, let's go back in time to, we made alcohol illegal. How did that work? It was an absolute disaster. It didn't stop people from drinking. It just made people go to places that had alcohol. It took away science and medical control over alcohol sources, and so moonshine became a thing, and people got sick or died from illegally or incompetently produced alcohol. It took a nation of law-abiding citizens and turned them into scofflaws. It taught a nation of law-abiding citizens that it was okay to break the law. Because see, you're having a drink of alcohol even though everyone told you it's illegal. So breaking the law must not be as bad as we thought it was. So it popped the bubble of you should obey the law enforcement. So it trained people like that. And people were so willing to pay money, and a lot of money, to anybody who could provide alcohol, that all of this money brought people who were hungry for money, who were willing to do anything for this money, and that turned criminals into organized criminals. It created the mafia as we know it today. Before Prohibition, the mafia, as the name goes, was this loose criminal confederation, a loose bunch of criminals that the name started in Italy, but the Prohibition criminals, smugglers, producers, were not just Italian Americans. They were from all ethnicities. It actually didn't matter where you're from, what your religion was, your philosophy in life. As long as you're willing to break the law to make a lot of money, then you contributed to this. And there's so much money was pouring through the system, this criminal system, that just natural human desire is to organize and to become more efficient at something you do over and over again. So it created organized crime. Absolute disaster. Finally, it was repealed. Prohibition was repealed, and people could drink alcohol again. What happened then? The Prohibition was all about the suppliers. People who made alcohol, people who smuggled alcohol, people who created underground secret bars called speakeasies, and where other people could go to illegally drink alcohol, buy and drink alcohol. All it really did was try to stop the suppliers, but it didn't really have any effect on the demand, which means as long as people were willing to pay money to get more alcohol, then no matter how many suppliers you put in jail, there was always somebody else willing to step up to get that money, get some of that action to provide the alcohol instead. And that's what happened to our war on drugs too. Every time we stop a organization from making or importing or selling cocaine or amphetamines or any illegal street drug, anytime we put that person in jail, somebody else quickly stepped up because the money was just too good. Because we didn't spend, our efforts on demand were not having any effect. Yes, a few people every generation grew up realizing drugs are bad. But enough people from every next succeeding generation grew up learning that drugs are cool. That if you want to be popular, if you want to feel good, if you want to be accepted by your peers, you have to try the drug. And then once you try it, then something about the drug then makes the person addicted. Okay. So it's the drugs. Fixing an addiction is not simply sending them to the detox center. A detox clinic will only flush the blood clean of the drug It'll support the person as they go through withdrawal. And then when that's done, well, out you go. You got to make that, we got to clear that bed for somebody else who is severely addicted, or going through severe withdrawal. You are cleaned, your body's clean, so have a nice day. But all that did was solve or handle the biological side of the addiction, but not the psychological or the social side. Whatever root cause made this person turn to a life of illegal drugs is still there. What can make somebody become addicted to an illegal, harmful substance? It's not just what the drug does to them, it's the fact that life does not have anything better to offer. Something about their life sucks, like really bad, to the point where they're willing to turn to something clearly and obviously dangerous for escape, for distraction, for something that their regular life, their legal life is not providing. So that's the social side. Then there is a psychological side. Something's going on in the brain, so that even though the front half of their brain, their logical side, is saying, this is really, really bad, you're ruining your life, you are hurting the people who love you the most. But the backside, the animal side, and the intermediary, the thing that's supposed to like modulate or control the cravings and self-discipline, is just not working. Something is broken up there. So that's the psychological side. So in order to actually understand addiction, you have to consider the person's biology, psychology, and their sociology. Sounds really similar to another triad that I actually talked about at the beginning of the semester. Does anybody know what those words were? A definition of overall health. Can somebody answer one of those three? Who's avoiding eye contact? All right, get your answer in before you have to run. Social. Oh, well, okay, you took the easy one, because social is social. Okay, so there's two left. Somebody else? It matches. It's another name for the other two words. But what did I keep saying every lecture? There's the social of the three. There's another two. What are the other two? Name one. One. Mental. Okay, then that matches the psychology. So what word matches the biology? Who said that? Okay, you get the pass for the day. You still can't wear earbuds though. So if it's something urgent and important, then take it outside. So mental, physical, and social is the triad of the definition of health. And here we are saying that the biopsychosocial model is a way to understand addiction. Should not be a surprise. So how do we fix somebody who is suffering addiction? We have to address their mind. We have to address who they hang out with. And that also means what is normalized in their culture, their peers, the people they look up to, the people they respect, the people they listen to, the people for whom they bring down their guard. The next slide, social factors, where you live, who you hang out with, what your social circles consider normal. Normalization of behaviors that either are addicting or lead to addiction. Sometimes it's social experiences that the person is trying to get away from, a toxic relationship, locked into an abusive family, and there's no way out other than to withdraw into themselves. And so the rare moment they do have alone, the rare time they do have some money for themselves, then they find an escape, get out of this nightmare that they're living day after day. Codependents and enablers. Codependent is a kind of enabler. Codependent is when the enabling goes both ways. The person who is in a relationship with an addicted person is supporting the addiction. That's to support somebody else's addiction, that's enabling. And then why do you keep doing it? Why do you keep supporting that other person's addiction? Well, you have something to gain by it. Either you're locked in that relationship, whether it's emotional lock or financial lock, where a stranger, a third-party stranger says, why did you just leave the relationship? Well, that's just oversimplified. You don't understand. You don't know what's really going on. And then the person who is codependent has some reasoning why they are unable to leave, unable to find safety for themselves. The problem with drug abuse is because not only the damage to the individual, but the damage to society. Not only the crime, once you break the law to get the drug, then you're breaking the law to do other things to support the addiction. Cost the society from crime, but also cost the society of supporting this person, their physical needs, once they're addicted, like in the emergency room. Some people are, last week I said that some people are going to the hospital a lot, like going to the emergency room a lot, because the system has failed them. The system is not fixing them. Instead, it's just perpetuating the behavior. And a very derogatory phrase that is used among first responders is called, we call them a frequent flyer, because it's like they're accumulating miles in the emergency room. They just keep showing up again and again. And so the phrase is sometimes applied to recurring visitors to the emergency room because of an addiction. I'm not saying that's right. It's a horrible way to consider a human being. But sometimes, well, two things. We, the first responders, are overwhelmed. We feel overwhelmed by the problem. We cannot fix it. We see the system is broken, but even if we have an idea how to fix it, it is just too big a problem to fix, and we're just one little person. And the other thing is, when you see the worst society has, then you put up your own ego defenses so you don't go crazy yourself. And some of it is like dark humor, gallows humor. And so it does, when you hear an ambulance worker or a police officer or a firefighter say something really off, like politically incorrect, because they thought they were among their own peers, where they are safe to say these things, but somehow you caught it, like on a recording or a microphone, it doesn't mean they are a bad person. It means that they are using humor to try to protect their own ego, so they don't have their own nervous breakdown from seeing how bad society is broken. Some definitions here, I think these are all self-explanatory, so I won't bother saying what each one, I won't bother reading each one to you, but if any one of these doesn't seem to make sense, please email me and I will forward you to supporting definitions. Okay. So what's a risk factor for addiction? Like I said, it's not only the physical, what the physical effects have on you, like endorphins and dopamine, those reward chemicals in your brain, but also what drove this person into that behavior. So their background, their history, the living environment. Risk factors then increase the chance that the person will end up in an addiction, and protective factors means it'll help them not. So things like a supportive, and take all the bad things that I alluded to and now flip it around and say, what about if it was a positive thing? Like you have good role models, you have roots of empowerment, so you don't feel trapped, but the person feels that they have the ability and the tools and the opportunities to get themselves out of the situation. These are all protective factors. Friends and family who are strong and supportive and forgiving, and great listeners, active listeners, So makes the person feel validated. You're living it. This life is crap, but at least we're doing it. We're living it together. You and me against the world. That kind of support against negative experiences. So it took a village. It takes a village to make a person addicted. It'll take a village to get that person out of the addiction. It took a lifetime to drive somebody into addiction. It's going to take a lifetime to get this person out. And if you say, if a government official says, we ain't got time for that, well, that's why the problem still persists today. There is an inheritance, there is a genetic component to addiction. So genetics is not the only cause, but it's like one of the causes. And it's hard to peel away the difference. Is it because your parents were addicted, or is it because your family lives in an environment that is prone to addiction or drives people to addiction? And it's hard to make studies that separate out the difference. But here are some other ones. The people you hang out with, environment, so the things that I keep saying. All right, so different kinds of drugs, and yes, herbs or herbs. The Europeans say herbs and Americans say herbs because American Revolution. And so even though there's an H in it, and yes, they are drugs too. What makes a drug then? A drug is anything that changes the body. A drug is anything that has an effect on the body. What about oxygen? We breathe oxygen. If we don't have it, we kind of in a bad place. So is oxygen a drug? Yes, oxygen is a drug. Oxygen is part of the United States Pharmacopoeia. It has its own registration number. Oxygen is a drug. A drug is anything that has an effect on the body. So don't ever say, oh, this is not a drug. I'm just taking it because it makes me feel better. You just defined a drug. This is not a drug. It just helps me. With. It does something to my body that I like. Well, you just defined a drug. A drug is anything that has an effect on your body. So, herbal supplements, any kind of supplements you buy in the health food store. All of this, they are all drugs, which means that they have an effect on the body. And when anytime anything has an effect on the body, then there might be a cross reaction. The thing you're taking, whether it's a herbal supplement, or a energy drink, one of the unusual energy drinks, or anything you take, if it then starts interfering with an effect that another drug is supposed to have, like ginkgo biloba used to be popular as some kind of a memory aid, but ginkgo actually does interfere with some common prescription medications. So the people who are prescribed to it, in that long list of directions that nobody seems to read, is do not take ginkgo. So these drug interactions. So here's a little diagram now, 4 different drugs. Well, first of all, let's take 2 drugs. The 2 drugs have one drug interaction. Either it interferes with or makes it stronger. Like if you take cold medication, in the back it'll probably say something like, do not operate heavy machinery while taking this drug. Do not take with alcohol. What's going on? The cold medication are sometimes suppressive, and it makes the person sleepy. And then if the person went on to take alcohol, that also makes people sleepy. It's also a depressant. Then the 2 of them work together and make the person even more sleepy, more depressant. And can you imagine if this person tried to operate a tractor or a forklift or a crane? So do not take heavy machinery, do not take with alcohol. That's one drug interaction between 2 drugs. What if it's 3 drugs? So let's take red, blue, and purple. So no arrows that point to green. So red, blue, purple, that's 1, 2, 3 arrows. That's 3 drug interactions. So we went from 1 interaction, 2 drugs make 1, 3 drugs make 3, And now 4. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. So we went from 1 to 3 to 6 interactions when the number of drugs went from 1 to 2 to 3 to, 2 to 3 to 4. What I'm trying to get at is the number of interactions start increasing faster than the number of drugs. When you get to around 6 drugs, it becomes impossible to track. It becomes so chaotic that no one human mind can keep track of all 6 drug-drug interactions. So that at that point we call it polypharmacy. Poly means many. Back in the old days, before computerized pharmacies, a patient would go to one doctor, get it prescribed like 3 or 4 drugs, and then go to another doctor, gets prescribed 2 or 3 drugs, like one for their stomach, and get to another doctor for their knees, and then another doctor for their diabetes, another doctor for heart disease, and pretty soon they've got a shoebox full of medications. Or the cookie tin. Your grandparents probably have this large cookie tin, and inside you open it thinking there's nice tasty cookies. Instead you see these pill bottles here, and it easily becomes a dozen, 2 dozen medications there, and now nobody can keep track of them all. Well, nowadays, since all pharmacies are computerized, then there's supposed to be a computer like making sure that all of this is kept track of, and then red flags something if it comes up. Or that's what's supposed to happen. And remember that herbs are a drug, your nutritional supplements are a drug, your energy drink is a drug, and they count. If you're taking 4 prescribed medications and a couple of herbs and energy drinks and you smoke marijuana, we're now up to 8 drugs. Just be aware of that. Which is why you should be honest to your doctor. When your doctor says, are you taking any medications or any recreational drugs? If you're taking any one of this list, you need to be honest and say. By law, they're not allowed to tell the police. So it's called HIPAA, Health Information Patient Portability Act, and it is illegal for the doctor to share your medical information with anybody not directly involved in your care. So they cannot tell the police, but the doctor needs to know if you're taking like methamphetamine or you got some Percocet on the side. Your doctor needs to know before he or she prescribes something that interacts with it and then kills you or sends you to the emergency room. Okay, so here are some examples of drug-drug interactions. Synergism or potentiation or agonist is, I'm not going to split the difference for this class. There is a difference, but I'm not going to explain it, test you on it. It's just these 3, synergism, potentiation, agonist, is one drug increases the effect of the other. Like if you took a cold medication with alcohol. If you took Tylenol with another pain reliever, they're potentiating. Antagonism and inhibition is one drug makes the other drug weaker. So that's the difference here. Intolerance is when if there's something about the patient's experience with this drug that makes them not want to take it again. So there is a medical reason to take this drug, but then once they tried it, they get some side effect that says, it's not worth it. The benefits of this drug are outweighed by this side effect, and you are now intolerant to that drug. For example, the most common intolerance reaction is an allergic reaction. Allergic reactions are impossible to predict because everybody's immune system is slightly different, which is why when you got your COVID vaccine, how long did you have to wait before they let you leave the clinic, the center? You all got it. What?
An hour.
An hour? Oh, well, that's safer, but I was never made to wait an hour. 15, 20 minutes, yeah. It was not exact, but why? They wanted to see if you had an allergic reaction to it. So, but that doesn't mean you'll never have one. You can still get one like hours later, days later. But for that, they told you, you forgot, but they told you, if you feel any adverse effects or anything bothering you, please call your doctor immediately. It might be a delayed reaction, allergic reaction. But that's completely impossible to predict. But there are other things that are possible to predict. A famous one from medical school, I don't know if they still give it anymore, is disulfiram. It is an antibiotic, but then what happened was they noticed that with this disulfiram, after the patient takes it, and then if they drink alcohol, they become violently nauseous, and they start turbo vomiting. And after scientists realized this was happening, they thought, I wonder if we can use this to treat alcoholism. Because if you become violently nauseous in any experience, you psychologically want to avoid it in the future. So can we do that? Can we make people violently nauseous with alcohol so they stop wanting to drink alcohol? And apparently it's not that successful, because I haven't heard much of it since then. And you know what? Let's do this. Let's go check it out. Let's have go to Google. Disulfiram. The first result is not artificial intelligence. This is new. Maybe they realized with I never stopped to read it, so they stopped serving it to me. Mayo Clinic. I guess still available. Okay, so they still do it. Disulfiram, is it treat alcoholism? 2022 FDA approved medication for alcohol. Oh, so they still, okay. My curiosity is satisfied. Okay. Cross tolerance is when one drug has cause an intolerant side reaction, but then the patient has that similar reaction to another drug, but in the same category. So, and that's all the detail I'm going to go into. And so it's possible. For example, if they say, if they ask you, have you ever had an allergic reaction to a drug, or are you allergic to any drugs? When you go to the hospital or when you get picked up by the ambulance, they'll say that. Are you allergic to anything? Allergic to any medication? And if you say penicillin, then they'll not give you anything else in the penicillin category, because you might have a cross reaction. Okay. So types of drugs abuse. So in the list of definitions above, the word abuse is for you take the drug for more than you're supposed to. The misuse is when you take a drug for other than its approved use. But if you take a drug because its effect is what you want, but then you take too much, then that's abuse. Alcohol, nicotine is can be abused. Marijuana can be abused. Now, how much crack cocaine is if somebody abuses crack cocaine, that's saying they're using too much. Then how much is just enough? What is an okay amount of crack cocaine? None. So 0. So anything above 0 is abuse, because 0 is too much. Yeah. Alcohol, the most famous addiction, Blood alcohol content 0.08%, as you already know, for driving. Okay. Alcohol. How much alcohol is a pregnant woman allowed to take? None. None. So what happens if she takes alcohol? Well, the earlier in the pregnancy she takes the alcohol, the higher the risk of a birth defect. For example, fetal alcohol syndrome is a bunch of defects that are seen in the baby on birth. If the baby makes it, spontaneous miscarriage. Miscarriage is the common term. The medical term is spontaneous abortion. What the general public calls abortion, the medical term is induced abortion. So another person causes the abortion, versus medically, versus it happened on its own. That's spontaneous abortion. That's miscarriage. So if the baby makes it to birth, then it's born with various signs and symptoms of fetal alcohol syndrome. The alcohol is toxic to developing babies, to development. And so one of the homework assignments is to look up fetal alcohol syndrome, have a look around yourself, share the link so I know you got it, I know what your source was, and then tell me what you saw. Teratogen is now the word, technical term for birth defect. Something that causes a birth defect. GEN at the end of a word means it causes what's in the front. Where did the word terato come from? All right, those of you who go into healthcare, you're going to keep running into new terms all the time, but they are often based in an ancient language like Latin or Greek. And so I don't know about you guys, but I keep hitting, when I was a student, I keep hitting brand new terms all the time, several times an hour. And to help keep track of what's going on, to help get my mind around it, I've loved looking up the historic origin, and that helped learn like root words, definition of root words, so I can like chain root words together later, like Lego blocks. Anyway, terato, so what I do was etymology. Etymology is the study of the history of a word. So let's see what comes up. And here, who is this? Before I read it, what's the source? Always check your sources. Okay, it's not AI, good. Oxford. It's from the Oxford. Oxford is a very old and highly respected English dictionary company. Ancient. So, okay, I will give them the benefit of the doubt. And here they say the origin is Greek, and it came from the word for monster. How dare they call my baby a monster? Okay, this is like 5,000 years ago, before they even knew what politically correct means. It's just that the midwife is helping deliver this baby, and this thing came out, and everybody screamed, monster, monster, or in Greek, terato, terato. And so the name stuck. And so now today, the medical term for birth defect is terato. Nicotine is bad. Nicotine is inflammatory. So smoking, turning something, burning something so it creates ash, has its own problems in the lungs, but nicotine continues through into the body, into the bloodstream, and causes its own set of problems, especially inflammation of the arteries. So exercise is great because it expands arteries in the long term. Then the worst thing to do is take something that's inflammatory that constricts arteries. So, and if you say, it's okay, I don't smoke, I only vape. Vaping is also a problem. Vaping gets nicotine into the body. Nicotine is bad for the baby too, so pregnant women should not smoke either. And smoking around a newborn is one of the risk factors for SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS. Did I have a slide on vaping? Oh, secondhand smoke. The baby who dies from SIDS may have been exposed to secondhand smoke, like not the smoker. Being in the same room as a smoker is almost as bad as being the smoker. especially because popular cigarettes have a filter, so the person smoking is getting the filtered air, which is not good, but it's a little bit better than breathing the front end of the cigarette direct in. But that's what you're doing. If you're sitting in the same room, non-ventilated room, as a smoker, you're inhaling everything that comes out of the front end of the cigarette, as well as what the smoker is exhaling. So that's secondhand smoke. Here are the benefits of quitting smoking within hours, within weeks, and within a year. Risk for lung cancer and stroke decrease after a year. Here's vaping. Okay, should you vape? Because you heard that vaping is safer than smoking cigarettes. If you smoke cigarettes, then switching to vaping is better. But vaping by itself is not good. So if you don't smoke, then don't start vaping. Vaping really started off as an alternative to cigarettes. It's sort of like a down step before quitting completely. The problem is that since you can't buy cigarettes until you're 18, but you can buy vapes before, then kids are buying vapes who had not smoked at all before. So for them, vaping is a gateway drug to cigarette smoking, or vaping is its own drug to nicotine addiction. OTC, over the counter, so Tylenol, aspirin, anything in the drug aisle, anything in your drugstore is OTC, over the counter, which means you can buy it without a prescription. It is a drug. It can interact with other drugs after all. Speaking of OTC, Tylenol, which is acetaminophen, and Motrin, which is ibuprofen, and aspirin, which is itself acetylsalicylic acid. These are all pain relievers, and you really, really should read the label in the back and follow the directions. And for those of you who refuse to read the instructions in the back, one of the things that I really need to point out to you is that it says in the back, if pain persists after several days, discontinue use, consult a physician. Whatever was hurting you after if it's still hurting after a few days, okay, something serious is going on. You need to talk to a doctor. And you need to get that fixed. And the Tylenol is just keeping the symptom at bay. And the problem now, after several days, however, is all of these, NSAID, ibuprofen, and aspirin, they're all called, acetaminophen, aspirin, profen. Acetaminophen, also called paracetamol, for those of you from those countries that call it paracetamol. Anyway, these are all in the super category of called NSAID, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, and they all are stressing on the liver. Even if you have a perfectly healthy liver, if you take these more than recommended for longer than recommended, you increase risk of liver damage, and eventually you're going to cause like serious long-term liver damage. So follow the directions. Prescription drugs can be misused, which misuse not only means using a drug for other than its intended purpose, but that includes giving it to somebody else who may be suffering the same disease, but you don't know that because you're not their doctor. And what happens a lot in society is two people are talking to each other in a social setting, and they say, oh, you're suffering those symptoms? I'm suffering those symptoms too. My doctor gave me these drugs, works great. Here, try a few. Okay, just because the symptoms are the same or sound the same, I should say that. They sound the same, but how are you supposed to know they really are the same? Because you're not a doctor and you didn't do the proper physical exam and blood tests to verify it's the same disease. So you don't even know if it's the same disease. You just think that the symptoms sound the same. And can we close the door? It's public space. So even though, so you think it's the same disease and you share the drug, which is supposed to treat your disease, not theirs, whatever they have, and they take this drug, and it turns out to be the wrong thing to give. That's not only misuse, but that's actually practicing medicine without a license. If that friend decides to turn around and sue you, they got you. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can say in your defense. You are got. They got you, and you are got. Happens a lot on cruise ships, right? Because retired people go on cruise ships, and then they meet each other, and they talk about their favorite diseases, and they start sharing medication. So every once in a while, cruise ships do have these pharmacological emergencies of people taking a drug they're not supposed to. Okay, schedule, control, schedule. If you ever hear this in a report or something, and you hear the word schedule, you wonder what's that about. This is explaining that. Schedule 1 is the worst. No accepted medical use. It's so bad that there's no justification for it. Like cocaine is not Schedule 1. Some, especially the nose doctors, the nose surgeons, they use a little bit of cocaine. I don't know where they get it from, but they use a little bit because it has this medical benefit for it. But so it's not Schedule 1. But like heroin, Schedule 1. That's pretty much all you really need to know. Marijuana. Yes, marijuana is now legal in New York State, but so is alcohol. Do you mind if your surgeon is drunk while they operate on you? So maybe you don't want your surgeon to be high on marijuana while they're operating on you. Do you mind if the guy driving the car behind you is drunk? Then maybe you don't want the guy in the car driving behind you is high on marijuana. Same thing. Do not drive under the influence. Do not perform your professional duties under the influence of any drug. Depressants are a narcotic. A depressant is something that slows down the brain and makes people sleepy. And that's where the word narc, or NRC, comes from. Narc is from sleep. I know you think narc means a snitch, but that's like 2 levels of social evolution. Originally, NRC is sleep. So any drug that makes people sleepy or tired or pain relieving is a narcotic. And then the word narcotic in general public conversation and police work became to mean any illegal drug. So down at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice, narcotic is any illegal drug. But in this class and in any healthcare class, narcotic is a downer, and narcotic is a depressant, makes people sleepy. Alcohol is a narcotic. However, alcohol is not. Alcohol is a depressant. Alcohol is a depressant, not a narcotic. Narcotic makes people sleep and relieves pain. It's a kind of drug category. Alcohol is a depressant, and now that I've said it, I should explain myself. You may think, nah, it ain't no depressant. It gives me courage. Alcohol gives me courage to ask out my crush. Alcohol makes people want to fight. Alcohol takes that shy guy and turns him into the life of the party. How can you say alcohol is a depressant? Alcohol depresses most of the brain, including the part of the brain in charge of inhibition. The part of the brain that says, I know you want to do that, but please don't. Please don't. It's dumb. It's going to get you hurt. You're going to regret this. That part gets depressed. And without its ability to function, now that thing you wanted to do, you let loose on society. And then you do it, and then the next day, you remember what you did, and now you hate yourself. You call yourself stupid. I can't believe I did that. Everybody is now texting me. Everybody's now sharing videos of me doing that thing, and I am now embarrassed for the rest of my life. Alcohol depresses inhibition, So with the little bit of energy and motor function and control you still have left, you go do that thing that your sober self would never have done, and for good reason. All right, back to narcotic. Narcotics make people fall asleep. Narcotics slow down the body, and they slow down us. So if your body system starts slowing down, which one would you notice first? Well, the mind, right? So it relieves pain, you get sleepy, great. But then the next organ system that you notice is the lungs. At overdose levels, narcotics make people stop breathing. That's a life threat. That's literally a life threat. You cannot live if you don't breathe. And the respiratory drive slows down until finally it shuts off. So the next time you're at a party and the friend you care about, not the one that you like to make fun of, but the one you actually care about, you care whether they live or die, you notice that they're lying on the ground or lying on the sofa, and you ask, what happened? What did he take? And somebody says, oh, one of everything, LOL. Then what you need to do is call 911. Oh, you need to try to wake him up. Okay, try to wake him up. If they will not wake up, if they will not talk, then assess for breathing. How do you know if they're breathing? Well, I can't teach that here, not in this class, not through a video, but a great way to learn how to see if somebody's breathing is to take a CPR course, because then you know what to do if they're not breathing or breathing adequately. So take a CPR class, which is, we give CPR classes here at Queensborough Community College, 1 credit hour. It takes 2 days. There's a 2-day version and there's a 1-day version. I think the 1-day version is through Continuing Ed, and the 2-day version is for credit here. This lecture made possible through our sponsor, Queensborough Community College. But if the Queensborough credit hour is too expensive and you don't need any more, then just use your favorite search engine and type CPR class and then your zip code. What's the zip code here? 11366. And you will see lots of private, local, nearby CPR classes. Usually they're about 1 day, like 1 8-hour day, and about $100. This is before inflation, so I don't know what they are exactly now, but it should be around there. And not, if you don't need it for credit, at least by taking this class you get a fancy CPR card that proves you are now certified. But now you know what to do if somebody you care about is having a serious emergency. So if you didn't take this class, you don't know how to assess for breathing, and this person is just not waking up, call 911. And while you wait for 911 to get there, you want to roll them on their side. So rolling on their side, and you learn this in the CPR course, is called left covering position. Fancy word, you don't have to learn it, but I know. Okay, so here are some pictures of people laying on their side. And the reason why you want to roll them to the side is because they could be not awake enough to talk to you, but they are awake enough to vomit. And if they do, and they are laying on their back with their face facing up into the sky, and they vomit, then the vomit will form a pool in their mouth. And with their next inhale, they will inhale the vomit and the stomach acid into their lungs, and that now they need a lung transplant. So this is a disaster, absolute disaster. So to prevent that from happening, roll them to the side like this and wait for 911 to get there. And then if 911 confirms the ambulance guys, people confirm that this is possible opioid overdose. Opioid is the category of narcotic, of which the granddaddy of them all was opium, and then the daddy of them all is morphine. That was used in World War II for wounded soldiers. And then there was a distant, the uncle who broke bad is heroin, but then we have pharmacy-related, prescription-related versions like Percocet, Clonidine. Fentanyl was a problem around for a while. Codeine, these are all opioids. There was a massive opioid epidemic, overuse, abuse, overdose epidemic. The companies that make opioids were pushing doctors to prescribe them, like wining and dining them, buying them tickets to vacations, tickets to like concerts, trying to push them to prescribe it and downplaying the the addictiveness of these opioids. So they were contributing to massive sections of every generation becoming opioid addicts and destroying their lives. They were raking in the money because these people were so addicted that they will sell their souls to get another hit. So the companies were raking in these profits and not caring that it was killing people, literally killing people and destroying lives. And then they got sued, and the lawsuits are still going through the courts. I think one went all the way up to the Supreme Court a few months ago. It's still in the works. The people, the top officers who got the most profits from this, from creating the opioid epidemic, are still walking around free, enjoying their third yacht, their second mansion. Anyway, the opioid, if the ambulance workers, EMTs and paramedics confirm that they are actually stopped breathing and this is an opioid overdose, they'll give him one of these things. They'll give him a shot of Narcan. Their version doesn't look like this, but why should you care, right? You're not going to use their version. This is the general public version. You can even buy these now in the drugstore without a prescription, OTC. I think they're like between $20 and $40. That sounds like a lot, but you know, it's for the people you care for. You wouldn't use it on a total stranger. You buy one if you have somebody in your life who has taken these opioids or other narcotics, has a problem with drugs, and you want them to stay alive and in your life, then maybe buy one of these and keep it in your backpack or purse, so that the next time you find them not unresponsive, then squirt them up the nose. You should make sure they're lying down when you do it, because if they're sitting up, it'll just dribble right out and be wasted. When you use this, I need to tell you, this Narcan, which is an antagonist, an opioid antagonist, so it blocks the effect of opiates. These Narcan wears off in 30 minutes. It wears off in less than an hour. Opioids wear off, it takes several hours, like half a day to wear off, which means that if you give them the Narcan up the nose, they could like wake up, they could be breathing again, but if you let them go back to the party, then an hour later they'll be knocked out again, and again they'll stop breathing. So Narcan is only a very temporary solution. Once you've given the Narcan and it did make them wake up, that's it. This is opioid. They have to go to the hospital. In the emergency room, they will put them on a Narcan drip, IV drip. That'll keep the opioid suppressed so that they can keep on breathing for themselves until the opioids finally work themselves out of their system. They're going to be staying there overnight. If the person is like a veteran addict, they know all this. They just sold their soul and their daughter for another hit of opium. They hate themselves for it, like another tablet of Percocet. They hate themselves for it. They wish they could die and go to hell, but they're still alive. And so now they are living the last high. And then some moron, some idiot, squirts Narcan up their nose, and now they're awake. And the opioid's not working. They're not feeling the high. What are they going to do? Well, if they're new at this, they'll get angry and upset and call you all kinds of names. But if they're veteran at this, they will go, "Oh, thank you for saving my life. You are an angel. God sent you to save my life. I will be forever in your debt." And they will skillfully convince you to leave them alone. And as soon as they're out of your sight, they're going to find some corner to hide in so nobody can find them, and wait for the Narcan to wear off so they can go back into the high. But that means no one will find them now until like the next day when the house owner smells something rotting. So if you did squirt someone with Narcan and they did wake up, which clinches it that this is opioid, don't let them out of your sight. That is if you care, right? You have to be safe, right? If they start fighting you, if they start swinging and biting you to make you leave them alone, okay, well, you have to protect yourself first. But as long as they're not fighting you, then they still like you enough to not fight you, then stay with them until EMS can come, emergency medical systems, EMS can come and secure them and get them to the hospital. Stimulants then are not narcotics, because if narcotics make you sleepy, then stimulants which wake you up and increase heartbeat and do all the things in the opposite, they're not narcotics. Stimulates what? Stimulates the sympathetic nervous system. If that sounds familiar, it's from the fight or flight. It causes the fight or flight reaction, the general adaptation syndrome. So the fight or flight response, getting you ready for battle. And makes sense now. If you're getting ready for combat, to run away, then you want, what are the following things you want out of your body? You want faster heartbeat, you want to increase your blood pressure, you want blood vessel support for your skins to lower, you want your digestive system and immune system to shut off, you want your brain to focus on the immediate current situation. What do you mean by focus? It means it ignores long-term consequences, because that's not important right now. The immediate survival is what's important. So it makes people stress, the sympathetic nervous system, stress, excitement, fear, strong emotions. It makes people focus and do things and make decisions on the immediate situation and not be aware of long-term consequences. Sound familiar to you? These are all symptoms of cocaine, amphetamine. So cocaine, amphetamine, and other stimulants stimulate the sympathetic nervous system, causing the fight or flight reaction, which some people are really into. Hallucinogens make you perceive things that are not there. Visual hallucination, auditory, olfactory, which is smelling, tactile, which is skin, gustatory, taste. So the person is sensing things that are not there, and can also sense completely unrealistic fantasy things. So things like LSD, famous for making people see and perceive things that are not possible in reality. Designer drugs, so MDMA, ecstasy, makes people feel like oneness with the universe, feels like everybody is in love, like that. Watch out for the crash, of course. All of these drugs cause a high, but then after the high, there's a crash. Rofinol, benzodiazepine, date rape drug. So it's not just the ropies, but there's anything that makes people sleepy, so they are unable to defend themselves, or cause amnesia, which is they forgot what happened. Anterograde amnesia means they cannot remember what's about to happen next, and these are both used as date rape drugs. So if you go partying, go with a friend and try to have like somebody designated to stay sober, to make sure the rest of your group are not taken advantage of. Inhalants is the poor man's drug. And what happens is somebody, through the biopsychosocial model, wants to get high to escape the reality they are in, but they cannot afford these other drugs, the more famous drugs, and they still want to get a buzz. So what do? So they go to the hardware store or the supermarket and buy volatile solvents. They interfere with normal brain function. And since they are no longer able to think clearly, they conclude, oh, I must be high. So, and then it only costs the price of a can of spray paint or paint remover or nail polish, anything that interferes with normal brain function. You do it once, maybe the brain can repair itself, or the damage is not that bad. But if the person keeps doing it over and over again, eventually it causes permanent brain damage. Steroids, the bodybuilders take it to make more muscles. Cut to the chase here. You can read this whole thing for yourself here and then here. Anabolic steroids build up, and they cause two things I want you to remember. They cause testicles to shrink, and they cause emotional instability, the roid rage. So there is a popular phrase, like, you should buy this car. Why should I? Because it's like a Porsche on steroids. And it's supposed to, they're trying to say it's like extra strong, extra good, extra whatever. But every time I hear the phrase, it's like that, but on steroids, my immediate thought is, are you trying to tell me it has small testicles and is emotionally unstable? Why would I want to buy that? Why? I don't want that for my car. So I hope you, from now on, will remember it that way too. Anabolic steroids do that. And a homework assignment is for you to find out why. To search for it, show me the link, show your source, and explain to me why anabolic steroid abuse and misuse shrink testicles and cause emotional instability. That's anabolic steroids, not catabolic steroids. Catabolic steroids is another completely different class of drugs, and they suppress the immune system. Why would you want to suppress the immune system? Isn't your immune system supposed to defend you against infectious disease? Why would you ever want to suppress the immune system? Well, I talked about it last week. For any kind of disease where the immune system goes crazy, it's like soldiers walking down the street and shooting innocent civilians. So you want to suppress the immune system for those times. So take catabolic steroids as your doctor approves of, but never take anabolic steroids. Remember primary versus secondary versus tertiary prevention. Primary prevention is not letting the disease happen in the first place. So what about for addiction? Prevent people from getting addicted in the first place. Any suggestions? That should be the easy one. I mean, I'm not talking about what's realistic or effective. I mean, just throw some ideas out there. You have a brand new baby girl, and the world is a scary place, and you're worried that your daughter you don't want your daughter to grow up to become a drug addict. So what kind of things would you do to teach your daughter not to do drugs? Make her conscious of the consequences. Okay, so show her things like Faces of Meth. Has anyone ever seen that website? The Faces of Meth. I'm not going to show it here because I don't know. It's maybe too much for YouTube. But it's like shows a series of pictures of people as they were going into methamphetamine addiction. And it was like all of their mugshots every time they were arrested. And they start out with looking like ordinary people, and then with every arrest, every mugshot, you just see them almost devolve into this primal feral state as their body just kind of wastes away. So you can show your daughter that, like when she's old enough to handle it maturely. Okay, so what's another one?
Frequent hand washing.
For addiction? We're talking about preventing people from getting addicted. I know.
But let's say if you have substance in your hand and then you probably touch.
Oh, teach her to always wash her hands. Okay, because if she hangs around friends who do drugs, then they may have like contaminations on their hands. Okay, but that's like infection. So it's a primary prevention of infection to hand wash. But how do we stop a young person from impressionable person from learning from becoming addicted to drugs? Never mind process addiction. That's later, but addiction.
Setting an example by not doing it.
Set an example, yeah. So don't be like shooting up heroin and then say, oh, by the way, sweetie, don't do this, okay? So that's okay. So that's a great one. That's different. Like, teach them about the dangers of drugs. Set a role model. Be a role model. So live a life where they see that you can be a good and successful and interesting person and not have to do drugs. But you can expand the scope. Like look for ideas outside of the individual, like to society in general. Any other ideas? You answered already. Give somebody else a chance. Are you just too shy to answer, or are you really that at a loss? Yes? Prevent them from getting into those situations in the first place. Okay, so chaperones, vetting the social events they go to. Okay. Yes, of course. Yeah, so especially with younger kids, you have to do that. But at a certain age, getting away from their parent is like the most important thing in their life. Right? So you can't be a helicopter parent forever. You guys know the phrase helicopter parent? It was a big thing for a while, then I never heard it again. Yes?
After educating them, you actually let them try it, and they might actually like it themselves.
That's thinking out of the box. Let them try it. Because especially for milder social drugs like alcohol and tobacco, sometimes, and like I just said, like at a certain age, staying or hanging around with you is like the last thing they want. Like 12 years old, 13 years old especially, they are flexing their hormones. They're flexing their hormones, and they're all about independence and being an adult. So they will purposely do the opposite of what their parents say. And so if you say don't smoke, don't drink, and that's it. That's the thing they were the trigger they were waiting for to go try alcohol and tobacco. So there is parents and there is a philosophy of like you can introduce them to tobacco and alcohol in the home, like when you're at dinner, you're having a beer, and then at a certain age you invite your children to taste it. And then if they mention smoking for some reason, and then you bring a pack of cigarettes home. And by you supporting them trying it under supervision, you take away that motivation. the motivation of my parents hate it, that's why I want to do it. Well, my parents don't care, so now I don't care. That's kind of how this goes. So great idea. So these are three very much different categories of approach for primary, which means don't let them get addicted in the first place. Secondary is when they do get addicted, now what are you going to do? And that's when detox comes in and treat the physical things. So the withdrawal symptoms are sometimes very serious. Withdrawal from alcoholism can even cause seizure if they quit too fast. There is a classic story of the alcoholic who finally is so fed up with what alcohol has done to their lives that they decide, that's it, I'm not drinking anymore, and then they quit immediately. But that can cause a disease called delirium tremens, which eventually leads to seizure. So after they're picked up by the ambulance and brought to the hospital, guess what the emergency room doctor will do? They'll give them a shot of alcohol. They'll go, here, drink this. And they're like, hey, this is booze. Doc, I'm trying to turn my life around. Why do you want me to take a shot? Like, look, we're trying to save your life. You're supposed to taper off the alcohol gradually over time, not quit immediately. So treatments for addiction is secondary is handling the withdrawal effects and not let them have another. People who are severely addicted to opioids, stronger opioids, sometimes they're put on weaker opioids as a way to like taper them down. Methadone, if you've ever heard of it, and methadone clinics is people who are addicted to like heroin and Percocet and clonidine and fentanyl. Well, they're not allowed to take that anymore, but they're going to go crazy. They are so addicted to this that they are going to go crazy. And so to keep them under control, to make life bearable, they will be given methadone, which is a much weaker opioid, until their body finally adjusts, returns back from the brink. And then later, they're weaned off the methadone too. And then finally, hopefully, and then that's the end of detox. But again, that doesn't really solve the social and the psychological side of why they got addicted, which is where the tertiary comes in. So tertiary is now long-term care to avoid relapse. Relapse is, even though they've got clean, their life is clean, then later they go back into it. So to help avoid that, there are support systems and therapy and ongoing check-ins to help them live a clean life, keep their life turned around. So it took a village to get them into this problem in the first place. It's going to take a village to help them get out of it. So along every step of the way, there's these things. Of course, effort should be made to stop the suppliers, of course. But focusing only on the suppliers is just prohibition all over again. We have to get the village to help stop addiction. And here are some explanations of other things. Intervention just means stopping the addictive cycle, stopping that addictive cycle from continuing. For addictions that are not immediately life-threatening, then one of the hardest things is to get the addict to admit that they are addicted. Because everybody will say, like, I'm not addicted, I can quit at any time, this is not an addiction, it's just a little to get the edge off of a hard day. So they are completely in denial. And it's obvious to everybody else they're addicted, but to them. And until they can admit to themselves, honestly to themselves, they are addicted, none of this effort is going to be effective. It's going to be a tremendous waste of time. You can force them to go to detox, but that's just the body, not the mind. You can force them to go to therapy, to go to support groups, But that's like putting them in jail. It's like they're somewhere they don't want to be, they don't think they deserve to be there. Their mind, all of their defenses are up. It's only when they you break down denial, they finally admit honestly to themselves they are addicted and they do want help. Now they are ready for these other efforts. Let's see. Agencies are involved. It's here for just appendix, really. School programs and other community programs that are involved, and then the main takeaway. So that's it. Well, again, we're done a little bit early. I'm sure none of you mind, but you have any questions? Then you've heard enough from me to attempt the homework and the quizzes. Good luck on that, and you'll see me next week.